Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzy Doodle Designs, and today I'm going to be coloring in this book, Disney's Thomas Kinkade coloring book, and we're going to be coloring, where is it? This page. So let's get started. Hello, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're coming back, I really appreciate it. And today we're going to be coloring using Polychromos colored pencils throughout. I do use a Posca pen at the end. So let's get started. So I am going to do just a little narrating in this, and then a lot of it will have the music in the background as well. But 2.5 hours is a really long time for you guys to listen to me blather on. So here I'm just starting. My goal in this is to make it look as close as it can to the original on the side. And the original is done maybe in acrylic or in oil paint, so I feel like there's always going to be a little bit of a difference between it. One of the things I like about coloring in this book is that because it's done the color choosing for me, provided I want to make it look exactly the same way, it challenges me to figure out what colors to use in order to get the results I'm looking for. And I think this can be a really good tool for us to use to develop our ability to see color and to duplicate it. And I find that I enjoy these just as much as I do when I'm coloring, making my own choices, but by challenging myself to do these and make them look very similar, I feel like I develop some good coloring tools to use when I'm choosing the color, because maybe I'm choosing it to look if this was my own page, maybe I would choose this color for the sky. And knowing in my head what I want it to look like and being able to put it on paper is sometimes, I think, something that we all struggle with a little bit. And I find that books like these can help us develop those skills. So here my thought is that I'm going to go in with the darker shade here. And I apologize. Let me see if I can put a small picture of the reference alongside my coloring. Okay, now you should be able to see at least what I'm hoping to achieve here. Now bear in mind, these are polychromos, so they do take quite a few layers. And so I'm going to be going in and doing multiple layers to achieve the color that I'm looking for. And I'm trying to leave, like this little spot here, I'm trying to leave blank so that I can add in a lighter shade. And you'll see me kind of do that throughout. I left a little bit there on the side before it gets to the ray. just because I want a little more transition area. So I'm just deepening that up. So it's kind of hard looking at this coral. You can see where it's darker on the left-hand side because it's supposed to be more in shadow or not in that that ray of light. And so I've tried to depict that using various shades of brown. So I don't really necessarily have a particular rhyme or reason to this other than just adding some colors and hoping that the combinations end up looking like what I'm going for. But I am thinking about the fact that we've got that ray of light coming in from the top, and it's going to be hitting on the right hand side of that coral. I'm using this warm gray here as to kind of like tone the color down, because that piece of coral that I'm working on right at this minute is directly in that the wash of the ray of light, and I feel like the warm gray kind of tones down the brightness of that coral without actually changing the color. So you'll see me use grays kind of throughout to blend, and that's kind of the reasoning behind it. Now, whether or not that's a good reason is a different story, but you may hear the hubs is home today, and Ellie Mae is running around like a crazy girl, and so you may hear them a little in the background. I apologize. I have my own room, but we have kind of an open floor plan house, so sound kind of carries. I wish I could make that reference photo bigger. If I could redo this video, I would probably edit the we'll get back to that. Here I'm using just a Posca paint pen. I want to get rid of those lines. They just seem really I don't know, I think it just adds, it's not the look I'm going for. So I'm going in and just kind of whitening those all out and trying to make the lines as smooth as I can. In the end, I like the look of having that white there. So I'm going to be moving this picture around, it looks like, as we go along, just so that you can see what I'm doing. It's hard because that's where I put the colors. So I'm having to move it to where you can see the colors and see the picture. That's the problem with having edited a 2.5 hour video and then finding this. So I'm going to leave you to it here for a second. I'm basically wanted to say, if you notice, I left that little 1/4 inch white gap, and that's because there's some sort of, I don't know if it's supposed to be a mist or an algae, but there's like maybe vapors coming up that are green, and so I wanted to, green and purple don't exactly make a great color. And it would definitely mute down any green that I was putting on there, so I wanted to leave that white. Now I'm going to just go in and kind of keep on working on the sky here. think this is a fun little painting, or picture, whatever you want to call it. I'm just using the yellow here on the edges. If you can see in the picture, around the edges is much lighter, and though chartreuse yellow is bright, I just think it really kind of makes it pop. And while I'm at it, I'm just adding the yellow in that I see in the picture there. So I'm pretty excited. My grandson's coming over on Tuesday. He's getting so big. He's got these pudgy little, you know how they get the Michelin legs until they can start crawling around and moving. They get a little pudgy sometimes. I wouldn't say he's pudgy, but he's definitely starting to fill out. So I'm pretty excited to get to spend Tuesday morning with him. I'll post a little picture here and let you see an updated photo of him. I'm also going to be starting a series, and I haven't decided what to name it yet, but it's going to be a comprehensive guide. And my goal with this is that if you guys saw, I typed out that comprehensive guide that was terminology and just basically all the basics of adult coloring, because what I find is that more advanced colorists know these things, but a lot of new people just joining the adult coloring community, much like myself not that long ago, are unaware. They've never heard of Etsy. They don't know where to get color books, things like that. So, but my goal is with this that it's going to be beneficial for both beginners and advanced colorists. So I don't really want to name it like a beginner series, because I feel like there are things that are going to be covered in it that advanced colorists may or may not know, depending on how much they've explored. So look for that. It's going to be a weekly thing. My goal is that every video will be under 30 minutes. That's my goal, but I do like to chat, so it could, there could be an occasional video that's longer. But my thought is I'd like to keep these under 15 minutes, and some of them definitely will. Others, it would be a challenge to do something in 15 minutes. So look for that to be coming out every week. I'm hoping to start that this next week. I have one in the works where I'm talking about where to buy coloring pages, the advantages of, PDFs versus a coloring book, the pros and cons of each, there are pros to coloring books and there are cons to coloring books, and vice versa. So I'm going to be talking about that. Also talking about line art versus grayscale. I might even throw something in about AI generated. There's such a controversy over that, and I am not a controversial person. I don't like conflict at all, and so I'll do anything to avoid that. So I probably won't. I may not even mention it. I don't know. But then we're going to start diving into the mediums, talking about when to use alcohol markers, the pros and cons of it, alcohol markers versus watercolor markers, things of that nature. So hopefully that'll be something that you all find interesting. And right now I'm thinking of doing it every Wednesday. So I'm going to try for a while at least to put out a video like the technique or the the guide, let's call it the guide, the adult coloring guide would be like on Wednesdays, and then on Sundays would be more like what you're seeing here, more traditional color alongs, art hauls, my goodie hauls, my finished pages, things like that. And then try and keep that Wednesday. I want to call it Wind/Wine Down Wednesday. I thought that would be really fun, but I don't know if that's a confusing message if you just saw that thumbnail pop up on YouTube. Would that signal, oh yeah, that's that, technique driven or terminology driven course type thing? Or, it might cause a lot of confusion. So I may save that, that title for live streams, and I've considered doing some live streams. So let me know what you think about live streams, and if that's something you'd like to see on the channel. I really welcome you guys to drop comments or post on the community page. Email me. You can find me on Messenger. My contact information is on my about, on my channel in the About section. There's a bunch of different ways to contact me. I do have a Facebook page. That's a really good way to get in touch with me. But I would love to hear from you guys. Do you want a Facebook group, or are you in enough groups that you don't want that? Live streams. If you have a great title for the series coming up, let me know all this in the comments. So here again, I'm using the gray just to kind of mute this out. This is a very murky area. Whatever that mist is that's coming out, or whatever, it really kind of dulls the colors up in this area. As I'm shading this rock, I do leave those little patches. If you look at the curve there, there's darker pockets of color and then lighter pockets of color. So wherever there's a lighter color, a lot of times I'll leave that, or I'll add an undertone and then cover it all over with a top layer of color. So what I did was use that black as the undertone and then cover it all over with the brown, and then that allows those deeper colors to come in. And then I'm using this gray essentially as a blender instead of, you know, how some people use white. And here I'm just trying to give kind of the illusion of some rays coming down. A lot of times what I do is I block in my main color. So like here, using that cream as kind of the main color of that rock. Leaving that section open, you know, because it's going to be where some lighter colors are. Once again, leaving a little bit of a gap there for the rays. Coming in with my darker tones under the edge of the rocks. And as I lay in color, I just keep looking back at the picture and saying, okay, I've got this brown and gray going on. Oh, it needs a little more gray. Then I add gray. Or it needs a little more brown. Or it needs a little more whatever it is. And I'm just constantly going back and forth between the two. Here I'm using the blue as the undertone, shading it all very, very lightly. You saw me pull back way far back on the pencil and really just using light strokes, because that's not my forte. I tend to be the let's get the color down quickly kind of girl. I'm a little bit of an impatient colorist. And but I am trying, and this medium is forcing me to learn to be a little more patient. But as you see, I'm just doing very light colors and just adding in the tones. And this is what gives the rock, when it's all done, when you cover it. Here I'm going over it with the entire thing with that same color. When you use a color over the entire image, that helps to unify all those colors underneath. But what you'll find is when I'm all done, when you look at this rock, even though it's going to be uniformly brown, it's going to have these darker tones and warmer tones and cooler tones in it that really make it look more interesting, I think. Now you might disagree, and that would be very valid, but I think it makes it look a little more interesting. Here I'm coming in with the darker green just to add a little shading into that little curve of her tail along the edges. And then an even deeper tone Then I come back in with the lighter tone and fill in more of the main color of this image. And then I'll add the lightest tone on the edges there. Adding just a touch of white. Not sure it made a huge difference. And then deepening up that curve, pulling in that blue tone that I used earlier in the rock. And I think I might have used it a little in the sky as well. I use that dark indigo. I really like that. Instead of using black, when I use colors like blue and green, I feel like it adds the value, the darker value I'm looking for without dulling it. Sometimes when you use just plain black, it can kind of dull your color a little bit. So like I said before, here I'm going in with a blue tone to add the dark value that I want on these rocks. They have a little bit of a blue cast to them, and definitely more of a cooler tone. But if you just go in with just straight black, it just leaves it gray and just flat. And so by adding the blue and then going over it with your grays, your blacks, you can really add some added dimension. And I don't know if you can tell in the picture, I don't even know if you can see I don't even think you can see my cursor, but if you look at that rock above the turtle, you can see that there's some blue in there. And so I'm putting in this brighter blue in hopes of kind of keeping that. And here I'm going in and I'm just adding a little bit of a texture to this by adding like little squigglies and just little almost like dots. Once again, it just adds a little more texture so that when I go over it with my uniform color in the end, it's really going to tie it all together. I apologize right here. I think what happened was my battery died, and so I pulled my camera down and switched the battery out, and I think I must have stuck my finger on the lens, because to me it looks slightly blurry here, and it's just in that one area. If you look off to the left, it's fine, and up in the top right hand corner it's fine, but right here where we're working looks a little blurry, and so I think that's what happened. So I don't notice it right away, so I apologize, but I do go in and clean the lens, and going forward I will be aware or more conscious that that can happen. So apologies. Just pretend that you're looking through it through a periscope. Like you're on a submarine taking in this view. Just kidding. It's my error. But see, I went over all those little squiggles, and while they don't pop out near as much, you can still kind of see that they left that kind of the look of texture there. Same with that little pop of pink. I'm not sure, I must have edited that out where I put the pink in there, but I can definitely see it now. It's just a small thing, and it could have been that I just made a stray mark on the page, but I kind of like it there. So I'm going in with a couple of different pinks. Just like with the coral, I like to use various colors, and I feel like this just adds to the interest factor. These are rocks, or I guess this is some sort of flower plant, but there's always going to be variance in color. And by using different tones, I think that really helps convey that. And once again, I'm so sorry for the smudgy. And here I'm doing that squiggly thing again, just adding in almost like a shadow, of in between individual flowers without going in and, creating individual flowers there. this side of the rocks definitely has more of a reddish tone to them. So I'm using the red violets and the purples to kind of convey that. Now here I'm taking this redder brown and kind of going in and adding in the ridges on the edge and more of the underneath side of each rock. At the end of this video, you'll see me deepen all of these, but for now I'm just putting the initial layer of color down. This little fishy cracks me up. Look at her little lips and her purple eyeshadow. Just makes me laugh. So I lay down my light color. I go in and I start adding the deeper tones on the spots, just on the one edge. Color about 2/3 of her lips. A little bit of eyeshadow. Now here I go in with the darker, this orangey red, and fill in kind of this deeper curve in her body. Then go over the whole thing with this orange. And then just reassess. Does it need more red? I decide it needs to go up a little more in the tail and really kind of deepen it up a little bit. Adding in the yellow on her head. And this one tail. Just putting this yellow on the edges, almost like a highlight. And then go in with a little pinker red, because this red is a little brighter than on her body. I was using the red as an undertone for the orange, just to really deepen up that orange, give it more of a red orange. Here I want it to be red. And then I come in with a darker color and kind of give her, I don't know, spines or kind of the membranes of where her fins are. And then take that color down into her body. I just felt like it wasn't quite dark enough. Plus, because this red is in her fins, if by putting it in her body, it kind of ties the two together. So use this dark tone and then go over it with more of the lighter red. And then yet again with an even lighter, just to give some variance in color. Kind of extending those little deeper veins out. Then covering the entire thing up with that pinkier red. Using a deeper yellow to kind of create some depth in the tail. Giving her some lipstick. So for these little guys, they're so small. So I do my best to add, the variations of color and whatnot. They're tiny on this page. So I'm adding the deeper greens in here, just following the picture guidelines. Using the 3 colors just gives it a lot of interest. Having the really dark darks and the light lights is really what makes a picture stand out. It adds what they call value to a picture, and in my opinion, it's what distinguishes someone that does good coloring and maybe someone else that doesn't do as good a coloring but doesn't have value. I think most people would prefer the picture with good value. Value is what, if you were to take this picture and take a snapshot of it on your camera and adjust the saturation and turn it into a black and white photo, you want to make sure that your images can still be rendered as an image. In other words, if you took the picture and you took all the saturation out, if everything kind of blended together except for the line art, then you don't have enough value in your photograph or in your coloring. And we'll go over that. That's one of the things that we'll be talking about in that weekly series that's coming up. We're going to get into color theory. We're going to get into values, contrast, hues, warm colors, cool colors, analogous. I don't remember. I remember it. I can't say it. But basically, like when you use the colors that are close together on the color wheel versus complementary colors, which are across from each other, and we're going to go into all of that as well. So definitely pop into those weekly ones and let me know a good name for that, because I'm hesitant to call it a beginner's course because I think that there's going to be advanced topics covered. Now, some of it is going to be very basic. If you've been coloring for any amount of time, you've probably figured out some of the best places to buy, your coloring supplies. But, you never know. I always read those things on Facebook and when I see people ask, because you never know when that one person's going to pop in that hidden gem of a store that you didn't know existed, and it really rocks your world. I know on the coloring one, I go into how to buy from Amazon from other countries, so Japan or Germany, and I talk about or I will talk about the pros and cons of that, and I do some price comparison where I actually break down, I put in my cart to include shipping and everything, the same books, and I compare them at different stores and different places, and I think that some of the results I think are pretty surprising. So even if you think you know where to shop, you may get some value out of that. And there's some, different places that I found to find coloring supplies. So I hope to see you there. So this is probably the one place where I'm not that wooed. I'm not exactly sure what this... I know it's a rib cage of something, and I don't know. It was hard for me to render this in a way that I liked it. But I gave it my best shot. Okay, at this point, I feel like we can get rid of the picture. We're kind of doing the bottom here, and you can see the area that I'm working on in the picture to the left. Now, do as many layers as you want to get the look you're going for here. You want to put down at least a couple of layers. Each layer that you add is going to kind of fill in a little bit more of those white spots and give it a smoother appearance. And I am tying in the colors that I used in the sky down here, and then adding in the redder tones from the rocks moving up. But don't be afraid to do some layers here. You can make them as light as you want. Because you're going to need to do several. It's a big area, and if you're doing this book, this paper has a very unique quality to it. It's just different than a lot of the papers that are in other books. But it's not necessarily bad paper. It is a little on the smooth side. But I find it just, I don't know, just a little different. Okay, so here I'm just using a cotton bud and I'm adding Gamsol. I just wasn't liking that my colored pencil just had a lot of grain, and I had already done a couple of layers, and so I just really wanted some help. And so you could use baby oil, you could use, I use Gamsol, you could use odorless mineral spirits, which is what Gamsol is, it's a name brand of that, but there are specifically odorless mineral spirits. You can use, I've heard of people using deodorant, I've heard of people using Vaseline. To me, I don't want to use things in my art that I use like for my hair and my body, just simply because things like deodorant have other things in them besides the stuff that'll break it down. They say, I have the same philosophy when it comes to using hairspray as a fixative. Technically, it works as a fixative and it will keep your pastels from moving, but you're also adding the other elements of hairspray, which are not archival, into your art. And while I'm not, none of this stuff is museum quality art, I'm not looking for the light fastness so much as I am, I don't know. Those are just my weird little quirks. I'm not going to shame anybody for doing it. If you're using it and it's working for you, then I say go for it. But I think baby oil is a good alternative here, and probably something that you might have on hand. I am switching out the cotton buds, period. I twist them and use them as much as I can. But what you don't want to do is go from that red rock area and then go into this green turtle. You can transfer color. Also, when I use Gamsol in that little tiny container because I can just put a very small amount in there, so I don't have a whole jar open, and I'm not dipping my cotton bud into the entire jar, because you can get pigment into your jar which will just kind of contaminate it. So this works for me. I got that little container for $1 or $2 at Hobby Lobby back when, they still do have the 40% off sales. Here I'm just turning the book upside down because it's easier for me to work. You can see I got a little bit of blue on that yellow there. So you do have to be a little careful around your lighter colors. And if I would have caught it sooner, I probably could have just wiped it off with that paper towel. But I do have the paper towel in my hand, and that's what I'm doing it. Also, less is more with this, so you can take your cotton bud or whatever. This isn't one of those big old fluffy cotton buds. This is one that's tapered down. If this was a fluffy cotton ball, you would want to blot it quite a bit on a paper towel before you put it on your artwork. Now, when you use Gamsol, you want to give it time. It will darken your art, and sometimes you can see it in the light, the little sheen, and it will darken your artwork until it dries, and then it'll lighten back up again. But the one thing you got to be careful of is you don't want to use your colored pencils over the Gamsol until it's completely dry. Once it's dry, it is actually really nice to work over. It really allows you, when you feel like you've put on all the layers you can and you feel like you need another color on top for some reason, if you use Gamsol, it will allow you to put several more layers on. So it's a really good tool to have in your toolbox. And I know there's a lot of artists out there that are, oh, I don't use a solvent, I can do everything with a colored pencil that I need. My thoughts are, well, good for you, but when my hand starts to hurt and I don't want to put 3 more layers on to make it look nice, I feel like it's a good tool to have in my toolbox. I don't use it often, and but I really like how it smoothed this picture out. I feel like it made a big difference for me. And as I get older, and because I tend to death grip my pencil, Gamsol's a nice tool to have because it really can save you. So don't let anyone shame you into their thoughts or beliefs. If they're a professional artist, I know professional artists that do use solvents, and then there are some that don't. It is, like anything, a tool, and that doesn't mean you have to use it, and it doesn't mean you have to use it every time. You can pull it out when you need it. Okay, I'm done with my soapbox. So this is a Pitt pen that I have, and I just wanted some of the darks to be darker. So I went in and I put it down, and as you can see in the light, when it catches the light, it stays wet for a second or two, and it allows me to kind of smudge it a little bit, and that makes it to where I don't have those stark lines. And I just basically, for the next couple of minutes, I'm gonna go in and just kind of darken up some of the shadowy areas under the rocks and along the deeper edges, and I do feel like it really adds something. I use this and then I switch to colored pencil. So use what you have. So here I have the colored pencil going. So use what you have, and it's an optional step. If you're happy with where yours is, then leave it. I just felt like it needed the darker pops. Alright guys, as we wind down, thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That way you will be sure and see the weekly guide that's coming up and any color alongs, hauls, and whatnot that I put out. Let me know in the comments if you think that the black made a difference. And we'll catch you on the next one.